Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pasch podcast. Let's get started with your host, Brian Pasch.
Hi, this is Brian Pasch, and welcome to another podcast. On today's show, we have an amazing entrepreneur, Lisa Jenner. She's the Chief Revenue Officer for Dealer Alchemist. Lisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for having me.
You know, your company is doing some amazing work in rethinking digital advertising for the automotive industry. But before we get into the company and the platform and your unique technology, let's talk about your background. How long have you been working in the automotive industry?
Well, I came out of the Art Institute with a degree in graphic design, so I was already pretty much plugged into technology, and I came into the automotive industry in 2004 after 9/11 and working in corporate marketing and oil and gas.
Wow. You know, it's so funny. You came in at 2004. I came in at 2005. So we've both been in this 17, 18-year period. Before you know it, it's going to be 20 years. And then after you were doing some consulting work, some creative work, some tech stuff, you got plugged in to Dealer Alchemist. How did that collaboration start?
Well, I had become a student of data throughout my entire career, and really I delved in headfirst into understanding everything that was happening in this big transition of digital advertising. And what I saw in my experience, I wanted to become a part of the change, and I wanted to make it more transparent. I wanted to help educate dealers and wanted to be of service in a much more dealer-centric way. So I have a longstanding relationship with our founder, Sean Kieran. He's a former dealer operator, and we were just very aligned in the integrity of what we wanted to bring to automotive in that space. So I invested in 2019 in Dealer Alchemist.
Well, Lisa, your story and my story are very much aligned. I didn't know that until hearing your story. I came from a data background, started to love the move from traditional advertising to digital, and fell into automotive accidentally. But once I was there, I realized, wow, there's a lot of dealers. Now, this is back, when you started in 2004. Basically, I realized that there was no one out there educating dealers. There was no one setting at least some frameworks for standards. Now, 9 books later, dozens and dozens of conferences later, there's still a lot of work to be done. So let's turn to your work with Dealer Alchemist. If a dealer doesn't know about your company, what's the elevator summary so they know exactly what you're doing so our follow-up conversation has relevance?
Sure. So Dealer Alchemist is really the digital advertising operating system for a dealership. Now, we've developed our own technology that we've titled Core Technology, and Core stands for Continuously Optimized Response Technology. And what that means is that our technology serves the dealer best in being adaptive to the inventory that they currently have in both new and used. Now, as a company as a whole, and being the digital advertising operating system, we're really managing the full digital funnel for digital advertising for the dealership. So website management, SEO, paid search, paid social, retargeting, OTT. We also provide a customer email blast every month, and then we handle all creative and co-op and scope. So it's a turnkey package with a unified message, which is really important today.
And we're going to get into that core technology in a minute. And I love the fact that you guys see yourself as the digital advertising operating system for the auto dealer community. I like the fact that all of those services are delivered to the dealer for one flat rate, including creative. A lot of OEM programs are kind of forcing agencies into a percentage of spend. And historically, many agencies have done a percentage of spend. When I started my agency, I said fixed fee was the way to go. Why did you guys decide also to go fixed fee?
I think just, it removes the question of, if we make a budget recommendation, is that, as an advantage for a higher commission? I mean, there are still agencies today that are charging a commission of spend. So we just wanted to remove that altogether. And we believe like it's the right thing to do, bottom line.
I couldn't agree with you more. I do remember the faces on dealers when I shared with them after Google stopped providing sales incentive money to agencies, just how much money Google was paying. They didn't call it commissions. They talked about hitting sales objectives, but there was a number of years, over 10 years, where agencies in OEM co-op programs were really pushing more and more spend. And one of the reasons why, obviously, was this sales incentive money, which for the larger companies was millions of dollars a year. Well, you mentioned transparency as one of the reasons why you wanted to come into automotive digital marketing. And that brings up metrics and measurement. I've been an advocate that dealers should have an agency that believes in Google Analytics and is recording events and conversions in Google Analytics to inspect what they're getting. How is Dealer Alchemist providing greater transparency and education to dealers when it comes to measurement of that digital spend?
Yeah, and I think just as a whole, we are transparent in just the baseline, what we're talking about in terms of not charging commission of spend. And there's been a lack of transparency in the digital advertising space. So, building out, the very first thing that we do is when we come in and get a client is we build out all of the goal conversions for that dealer. And we do all of our reporting through Google Analytics. So we have live reporting, twice a month with our dealer body, dealer partners. And we go through how their digital advertising is performing for them. Digital advertising is unique because there is no way to pinpoint exact attribution through all of these different channels. And it is really a multi-channel, if you're buying a car, you're looking in all the places. And so in terms of transparency, we show them exactly where their money is performing. We pull our Google ad campaigns into the Google Analytics, and Google Analytics is where you cannot lie. So we show them and we educate them through that reporting tool on their own data. And we also talk to them about the importance of building the historic data and comparing data as well.
We have a big cutover, Lisa, to GA4. I'm going to be announcing this week a Automotive Council for GA4 standards. How are you preparing your dealers and their analytics? Because sometimes, right, as a digital agency, you're just one of many vendors in the mix. There's digital retailing, there's the website platforms, there's chat. How are you better preparing your dealers for next July when Universal Analytics is sunsetting?
Yes, so we're preparing for that now, and as we get closer, we'll pull everything in, but we're absolutely ahead of that curve.
Great. Now, before we talk about waste, and there seems to always be a conversation about discovering waste, we can't discover waste until we measure. And when we talk about measurements, you mentioned Google Analytics, which I'm an advocate for. But then it comes down to, what should we be looking at? Pay-per-click spending is measured in one way, OTT in another, Facebook, social media advertising with the kind of keeping people on the Facebook platform strategy with the AIA ads. What are some of the success metrics that you believe dealers should be looking at?
Well, if dealers are only, and this is, I think, an important piece that also ties back to transparency, is if dealers are only looking at like a rolled up proprietary report from the agency, they really do need to be delving deeper into their analytics. Some of the roll up reporting will, for example, we just saw recently a vendor was taking Google My Business clicks, now Google Business Profile clicks, and they were using it in the reporting to show a low cost per conversion, a low CPC. The problem with that is that that's an organic click and it has nothing to do with paid search strategy. So being able to differentiate between roll-up reporting, roll-up or proprietary reporting, and really delving into the metrics of your Google Analytics is where you're going to be able to see how that's performing. Now, we take the dealer through their website behavior flow. This is where people are spending time on your website. This is where people are spending time. We talk a lot about search result pages and VDPs as well. We look at time on site, and we go through. Because we tie our Google ad campaigns, which I still see. I always say I'm shocked, but I'm not. But I'm shocked at the amount of audits that we're doing where the Google ad campaigns are not coming through, and through that you can see. If you have a roll-up report that's telling you have a, $3, $2 cost per click, then you're able to go into your Google Analytics, see what you're spending on your actual inventory ads, or am I spending this all on what would be my free organic traffic on branded regional location terms? Now you're delving into where you're spending, how the people are responding to your spend, and then you have your conversion goals built out to where you can see where those conversions are happening, click to calls, forums, time on SRPs, time on used VDPs, for used, for new.
That's right. And Lisa, one of the things that I've been preaching on for years is that cost per conversion metric on most agency reports is always somewhat suspicious because no one's clearly defining what a conversion is. And I've published a new framework last summer for Google SEM that has really revolutionized the way in which we look at SEM, because we really have to say, what are hard conversions? Those lead forms, phone calls, chats, and text, digital retailing, completed leads other than just website leads. There's a group of conversions which dealers value because they provide some way to contact a consumer, and I call them hard conversions. And then we have soft conversions, things like, hey, they came in and they played around with the digital retailing tool, but they didn't give their information, or they were engaging and watching the walk around videos or the 360 videos for the car. That's an engaged shopper. So why do you think today there are, no standards in the automotive industry? You talked about transparency, we're aligned there. You talk about Google Analytics and setting it up right, and I'm aligned with you there. Yet I would say 8 out of 10 dealers, I look at their analytics, it's not set up right. What do you think the problem is, Lisa? Why is this industry still, suffering from lack of education, lack of transparency? What's been not happening? Because you and I have been at it for over 15 years.
I think, I do think that it's been a benefit, unfortunately, for the vendor side of the business to, keep dealers educated on, what they're selling instead of what they need to be buying. There's still dealers that we go in and there's a duplication of digital services. It is getting better. But, and then I think also, proprietary reporting is where you can hide data. And, the last thing that dealers want to do is to, feel like they need to be a detailed expert and learn a whole new set of acronyms inside of Google Analytics. So I think if we can build this bridge, I also really believe, and I know we talked about this earlier too, is, we have this mediocrity in the quote best practices, ideal that we have set as a standard today. And until we start setting these new standards, until we start demanding that We have transparency in the dealer's data, which is the Google Analytics for their site. Until we're demanding they're pulling in Google ad campaigns in there, and we're demanding that they build out these conversion goals, and demanding full transparency, it's going to be a long, hard shift, I think. One of the things that I like to talk about too is just SEO. I mean, Google has made so many changes in the last 7 years. They've really started to put a heavier weight of importance on technical SEO components, but we still have dealers that are paying, $2,500, $1,500 a month for quote SEO packages. And that's just, one example of a money bleed that doesn't really support the dealer in the most optimized way for SEO. So until we start really, I think, educating dealers, and dealers are asking questions and they feel comfortable asking questions, and there's more people like yourself and like me that are pushing for transparency and showing the way, there's going to be a little bit of a curve.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why this week we're going to be announcing the formation of the Automotive Standards Council for GA4, because Lisa, you know how big of a mess normal analytics is, because there was no standards at the beginning. So we're hoping to get the companies like Dealer Alchemist, the website companies, the chat companies, the DR companies together ahead of time and set some standards, because we do need to make it easier for dealers to inspect, because they are not technical, marketing analysts. They're surely not Google Analytics experts. And of course, GA4 is going to change even what they knew. So let's pivot for a moment and let's get into the details of your unique digital advertising operating system. You're taking the dealer's inventory, that live feed, that dynamic data, and building advertising campaigns for Google and Facebook. And, dealers have been probably the lowest inventory levels in their history, obviously for new cars. And the new cars that they have, they're selling like hotcakes. So let's talk at a high level, and then let's talk about your tech. Do you see dealers cutting back on their advertising for new cars because they're selling everything that they have in stock?
So I think the baseline right now is really what's happening with agencies in general. And the pivot for agencies in this pinch of new car inventory has been to take the allocated spend and spend more on branded regional location terms, which is a good portion of that is going to be your free organic traffic. Instead of making the pivot to dynamic inventory ads for used and allocating the spend over, maybe it's 70% used and 30% new. So I think that's been one of the biggest issues. And I think that even though the inventory is pinched, dealers should still be deploying ads based on the inventory that they do have in stock. So our strategy is quite different in that we are not putting a heavier weight on dealer terms, meaning like the dealership name, Nissan dealer near me. We're putting the majority of spend on the inventory that the dealer has in stock and in transit. So if that vehicle is sitting on their website, our technology is building out dynamic inventory ads based on all of the properties of that vehicle, equipment, trim, color, etc. Some of our ad campaigns are upwards of 70,000 key terms. So if there is somebody in your market, and we can get into how we customize our audience technology, but if there's somebody in the market looking for a vehicle that you have in inventory, you absolutely want it to be there, because consumers, I think, are looking for vehicles that they can get in, sooner rather than later.
Great. And Lisa, question. I think most dealers have seen dynamic inventory ads on Google and Facebook, but there's a growing number of people who are taking that dynamic data feed and creating OTT videos or data-driven videos that are being regenerated each day and pushing out on streaming channels. What's your OTT content strategy? Are you finding it better to be doing general branding, like fixed messages, or are you also seeing dynamic inventory insertion into video for OTT?
The majority of our clients are doing dynamic insertion on OTT. One thing, and I'm so glad you brought this up, one thing that we're seeing in the market is OTT is the new shiny object. And so one thing that we always make sure that we're doing is we have a much higher social budget than OTT budget. So we do believe that's a better place to spend in terms of conversion. The times, like right now, we have a client, they have just acquired 8 new stores. So they're doing a complete rebrand. So for that market, we are running the dynamic inventory OTT as well as a rebrand, right? OTT. So I like doing both. It really depends on the size of the store and the budget, and then what the overall objective is.
Love it. Now let's talk about audiences, because well, everyone seems to be, OTT is surely the next shiny object, but first party audience, custom audiences, hyper targeted audiences. So when you are presenting your platform strategy and a dealer says, hey, I want to do some conquesting, I want to do some retention, I want to do, buyback campaigns, obviously behind all of these requests are the need to create audiences. What is your current offering to build first-party audiences or to use third-party audiences in a first-party application?
This is where technology has really just become incredible in this digital advertising space. And pairing the audience building technology with the inventory technology, I mean, that's our jam. So there's a lot of talk right now about first party data and Amazon data, and then you have Google data, social data, et cetera. And you absolutely need to be digesting all of that data. In my days as a consultant, one of the things that made me absolutely crazy is it's like, oh, hey, you're a Chevy dealer in Houston. Well, here's your cookie cutter, ad template for digital advertising. And that same Chevy dealer that's in Timbuktu, Texas, is getting the same kind of cookie cutter program. And so what I love about what we do is we come in and we digest the dealership's information. We understand what their customer looks like, what their buying profile looks like, what their online shopping behavior looks like. We understand their market. We know which zip codes buyers are coming from. We look at their PMA. We look at where they're holding retention. And so we digest all this information, and then we pair it with these other data aggregators. I mean, Google is huge, right? Amazon's huge. It's where people are spending most of their time and their money. And so by pairing those things, then you are talking to your first party data. You are retargeting people that are coming to your website and shopping online for your product. And then in addition to that, we're able to build audiences that mirror what your customer buying profile looks like. So it's a very customized approach. And then your inventory is also custom to your dealership.
Love that, Lisa. And, Lisa, as dealers are listening to today's podcast, I always get this question at 20 groups. So I'm going to break it up into 2 parts. And I know it's dangerous to do generalizations, but since dealers ask it, that means they're going to ask you, and you can respond any way you want. But you look at dealer budgets, and sometimes there's waste in those budgets. But within advertising strategies, we have Google for sales, new cars, Google for sales of used cars. We have Google for service. We have Facebook for all of those. We have OTT. We have SEO. You brought up that as well. So if you had to say right now, what's the top performing campaign strategy that seems to be working in this low inventory environment, number 1. And number 2, what do you think is the biggest waste that you've seen from dealer audits? So let's talk about the best performing first. What if a dealer said, hey, I have X dollars to spend, I want to spend the most in the best ROI for my dollars, where would it be spent first?
I mean, you have to be showing up in search on Google. That's where everybody goes to look for anything. So I absolutely believe that's important. I also believe that social advertising is right in line with that. I mean, because that's where everybody's spending their time. So those would be my top two. In terms of waste, I'm not a big fan of display ads right now. I just don't see them converting. I understand the bot side of that. And so I wouldn't spend there. And then I would definitely make sure that my social advertising budget was in line with OTT. And that's why we do this kind of multi-channel approach, because they all work together. The biggest waste I think that's happening right now is dealers overspending on brand regional location terms. And a lot of that is not only an overlap in what would otherwise be their free organic traffic, but there's also overlap with OEM terms as well.
You know, Lisa, I exposed in my research report that released last August some of the common feedback loop mistakes that Google really didn't clarify for agencies, and dealers obviously suffered for that. But you brought that up, dealer name and regional terms. And we know the power of the Google Business Profile, formerly Google My Business. And, you know, when somebody does Chevy dealer near me, Google My Business is loud and proud on maps and in search. When somebody is doing the dealer name, it's 100% always on the first page of search results. It's very interesting that dealers seem to want to pay by their name or the near me searches when, if they invested a little bit more time on content, video, reviews, responding to reviews, their Google business profiles would really shine. As part of your agency's service, are you helping dealers optimize their Google business profiles for sales, service parts?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a definite must do. Yeah, I mean, and I think that's when Google pivoted to create more focus on the Google business profile pages, formerly Google My Business pages, you know, and made dealerships locally owned businesses. That shifted the strategy in our industry. The problem is that not all of our dealer body has shifted with that. You know, there's still agencies saying, oh, you need to buy your name. And I think it's important to educate them and say, hey, listen, when you're buying your name, and it may only be $1 a click, but when you spent $500 a month, let's say, on your branded terms, for people that are just calling to set a service appointment, that's wasted spend compared to maybe spending $3 cost per click on getting a dynamic inventory search ad that lands on a search results page where somebody's, you know, investigating a vehicle that they may want to buy from you. So yeah.
And we found and published in the report that because of dealers targeting strategies and keyword strategies, that, you know, less than 15% of the phone calls from Google Ads were for sales opportunities and majority service. And that is because, just as you mentioned, Lisa, that the overspending on the traffic that was going to come to them already, and most of that was for service. But when you have better data-driven targeting, when you have data relevant ads based on cars that are in stock with the current price, with the current incentives, and then that's presented omni-channel through email marketing, through OTT, through Google, through Facebook, then we're spending our money wisely. As we wrap up our conversation, Lisa, I'm going to ask you, dealers have heard dozens and dozens of pitches from agencies and, well, digital advertising platform providers. If there was one thing you could say to a dealer that you believe is a key point of understanding how you're different than the other solutions, what would it be?
We really are focused on being dealer centric. We have a very, very much a mindset like we are a part of your store. And because of that, we do the due diligence that's necessary to make sure that we are working for you. And we are so transparent. We open up our Google ad campaigns to dealers. So we are willing to, you know, show you exactly how it's performing. We're willing to show you exactly down to the penny where every dollar is being spent. And then we do have a very strong belief system that we should be prioritizing your product. I mean, when people go to Amazon, they're not looking for store names, they're looking for products. And so we have that same alignment. And so it's really a matter of cutting wasted spend, cutting out the hoopla and the hoopla, and making the dealers' investment on digital advertising work for them. So that would be what I have to say for sure.
Yeah, well, listen, that's music to the ears of dealers, because you know what? At the end of the day, they really want to feel that the people that's working with their budget are aligned and can be trusted and are transparent. I mean, just like anything else in our lives, if whether we have a stockbroker where we're trusting our retirement for, we surely want to know that if they're getting fees from products that they recommend, that should be disclosed. And if they are taking a management fee, okay, what are you doing for that fee? How are you helping me get better? Are you aligned with my retirement objectives? I think for the most part, dealers don't want to dig into all the data. But if they want to, and this is what I've always told agencies, it's not that dealers ask to look at Google Analytics all the time, but if they call me or you in to look at the data, you better be transparent, because the worst thing a dealer wants to find out that they've been spending thousands of dollars a month and they have no audit trail because maybe analytics and ads weren't connected, or conversion goals weren't set up, or a website changed and no one changed the conversion goals. So I think we're very much aligned, Lisa, on our vision to educate dealers, help dealers grow. And this is why I wanted to interview you before you and your team come out to the Digital Marketing Strategies Conference in the Napa Valley. Lisa, if a dealer wanted to get a demo, talk to you about their current advertising strategy, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Yeah, I mean, they can always go to our website at dealeralchemist.com. They can also reach out to me via email at lisa.gener@dealeralchemist.com, or they can just hit me up on my cell phone. That number is 832-594-7583, and I'm always willing to help. I'm always willing to help a dealer look at his Google Analytics, with no tie to the outcome. I'm just, ready to help educate and show dealers how they can make their advertising dollars actually work for them. When a dealer tells me, Lisa, I can feel the difference, man, I know I've done my job.
Yeah, well, amen to that. Well, for those of you who are listening, Dealer Alchemist is one of the sponsors of the upcoming Digital Marketing Strategies Conference. It's a 12th year. We're running this executive retreat to focus on the business challenges that dealers are facing. This is an amazing opportunity for you and your team to get out to the beautiful Napa Valley and learn, connect with owners and strategists and the smartest people in marketing and automotive. The dates of that conference are May 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. And we're so glad to welcome Dealer Alchemist this year into the speaking and the support of this amazing educational event. So if you're interested in attending, if you hear this podcast and you're like, hey, I want to get out to Napa, go to digitalmarketingstrategies.org and look at the amazing agenda. You could fly into San Francisco or Sacramento Saturday night or Sunday morning. We kick off Sunday afternoon and all day Monday and Tuesday, and then you can leave on Wednesday. It's a powerful conference. And if this is the first time you're listening to one of the podcast sessions, you should know that I interview industry leaders, disruptors, and innovators on my show. And we do that to educate the dealer community and to help everyone improve the automotive industry experience. So make sure you listen to some of the past episodes because they're really relevant and conversations that could help your business thrive. So, Lisa, I want to thank you for being on the podcast. I want to thank everyone who's listening today, and please share this podcast with your friends. And I look forward to seeing many of you in the beautiful Napa Valley at the Digital Marketing Strategies Conference in just a few days. If not, I'll catch you next time on another podcast session.